We see a young, aspiring pilot named Gift operating remote-controlled airplanes with her friend. She is heartbroken because her parents want her to study abroad, while her true dream is to pursue aviation and become an airline pilot. As she travels to the airport with her parents to celebrate her birthday out of town, we see her struggle with her conflicting desires. Gift has a caring and affectionate father, but her mother is a driven career woman, prioritizing her business over her family's needs. Her mother, Fen, is seen speaking on the phone to a client, stating that the house is prepared for sale before hanging up. Her husband, Jamras, advises her to ease up on work, especially today, as it's Gift's birthday. She responds that someone needs to work, and with Gift having secured admission to a university in the UK, they will require all the financial support possible. We then see a group of flight attendants entering the airport, one of whom is named New. A few years prior, a supernatural incident occurred on a flight that resulted in the deaths of everyone except her. She had closed her eyes just before the catastrophe and somehow survived miraculously. Since the incident, she has undergone years of therapy to regain her mental stability. This will be her first flight since that tragic event. Passengers are seen in the terminal waiting for their flight, including a girl named Anne who is dressed provocatively. Anne sits next to a monk who appears visibly uncomfortable and soon relocates to another seat. In the next scene, we see several engineers inspecting the airplane. Bank confirms that the aircraft is in perfect condition and ready for takeoff. We are then transported back to the terminal, where Anne is being harassed by a pervert American man who tightly grips her hand while scrutinizing her ticket. Fortunately, Wave comes to her rescue, telling the man to move along before taking a seat. Shortly after, all the passengers are seen boarding the plane. Gift is seated behind her parents, but soon shifts to another seat, tired of their constant bickering. We then see Bank outside the airplane when he suddenly hears an unusual sound. He opens the cargo hold, climbs inside, and inspects the area. Suddenly, a strange figure appears behind him, but when he quickly turns around, it vanishes. Rising to exit, he is horrified to discover the door is locked. He begins knocking and shouting, but no one hears him. In a panic, he calls for help on his radio, but receives no response. Back inside the airplane, New attempts to soothe one of the older passengers, instructing her to count slowly to regulate her breathing. She then informs the other attendants about the elderly woman and instructs them to care for her. We see the attendants conducting the safety demonstration, performing a short dance that earns applause from the passengers. New then contacts the pilot, and they begin the takeoff process. Meanwhile, Bank remains trapped in the undercarriage. Afterward, Prince tries to open a cabinet door, but it is stuck. New tells him to step aside and bangs the top of the cabinet with her fist. Simultaneously, she has a flashback of a previous flight where she was searching for cups. Suddenly, she sees a strange figure, causing her to scream and jump back. The other attendants are startled and attempt to calm her down, bewildered by her reaction as she exits the cabin. New then checks on the passengers. As she walks down the aisle, bloody footprints appear on the floor behind her before quickly vanishing. We then cut back to Bank, who now looks disoriented as he attempts to push a pressure button before collapsing. Next, Wave enters the restroom. As he washes his hands, the lights begin to flicker, which he finds odd. We see the entire airplane's lights are flickering as well, causing panic among the other passengers. Meanwhile, Wave washes his face, and two hands suddenly appear behind him, scratching his face. He appears unfazed and continues washing his face with his eyes shut. Suddenly, the American man stands up erratically. The flight attendants urge him to sit down, but he appears possessed. Veins surface on his face, and his head spins around. His neck breaks, and he collapses to the floor. The attendant then puts him back in his seat, and whatever entity possessed him seems to have vanished. Afterward, we see Wave returning to his seat. Anne notices the cuts on his face and inquires about what happened. He touches his face and asks the attendant for a band-aid, but she oddly tells him everything looks fine. When he glances out the window, the marks have mysteriously disappeared. In the cockpit, the pilots react to the pressure control button flashing. The co-pilot leaves the cockpit to investigate the cargo hold. He is shocked to find Bank and assists him back onto the plane. Suddenly, all the the passengers struggle to breathe. Nu asks Bank what is happening, and he replies that the plane is running out of oxygen. He instructs her to retrieve the oxygen tank. She quickly leaves the cabin, and we see Bank releasing the oxygen masks for the other passengers before losing consciousness. When Nu returns, she is horrified to discover that most passengers have already fainted. As she watches, she sees a cart approaching her, seemingly moving on its own. A ghostly figure pushes the cart, asking the passengers if they would like a drink. The apparition quickly vanishes, and we see the passengers starting to regain consciousness. Unfortunately, two of the hostesses have already died. Bang attempts to open the cockpit door but finds himself unable to enter. He informs Nu that he needs to return to the cargo hold to fix the air pressure system. Otherwise, everyone will die. Fen begins to panic, shouting at everyone and screaming at the elderly lady for breathing too loudly. Anne defends the old woman, telling Fen not to be so selfish in her language, which Gift translates for her. In response, her mother yells at her. When Jamras tries to explain that Fen is under immense stress, Gift gets up and moves to sit beside the male attendant. She asks Prince for something to drink, and he tells her to fetch it herself. She returns with a bottle of wine and takes a few swigs. Clearly rattled, she offers Prince a drink, saying they're all going to die any minute now. The scene cuts back to Bank and Nu as they try to repair the pressure system. Nu's oxygen tank runs empty, and she nearly faints. Fortunately, Bang shares his oxygen with her. We then see Gift back with her father, blaming him for their predicament. He responds by saying he wanted her to conquer her fear of flying. They embrace as Gift begins to cry. When he starts singing happy birthday to her, they hear voices from behind and notice a cart rolling out from behind the curtains. Wave stands up and pushes it back. Suddenly, Anne begins to shake, clearly possessed. She stands up, demanding to know where Nu is, blaming her for abandoning them, and screams that they will all die. Then, she shakes again and collapses back into her seat as if the ghost has left her body. The situation on the plane deteriorates, and other passengers begin to lose consciousness. Fen knocks on the cockpit door but gets no response and then faints. Disturbing figures materialize throughout the plane and then disappear. Back downstairs, Bank manages to repair the pressure system. In the cabin, we see the passengers regaining consciousness, but Prince realizes it's too late for the old lady who has died. Nu and Bank return to the cabin, where she is confronted by Fen. She accuses Nu of being responsible for everything that has transpired on the plane, insisting she knows Nu is somehow accountable for all this. Prince asks Nu if she understands why all this is happening. She finally confesses that she was on a flight 10 years ago during a paranormal incident where she was the only survivor. Unsure if this is the same aircraft, she uses a flashlight on the deck door, confirming her fears as she recognizes it as the same plane that crashed 10 years prior. Bloodstains appear on the door, and suddenly, ghostly figures emerge, sending the passengers into a panic as they scramble for safety. A couple named John and Michelle quickly dash to the restroom and lock themselves inside. Amid the chaos, Anne falls to the floor, pleading for Wave's help. He ignores her and runs to the restroom, but no one lets him in. He decides to return to Anne to assist her, only to find that she has become possessed. With no choice, he strikes her down with a fire extinguisher. Wave returns to the restroom, and while attempting to break down the door, he accidentally hits John as it swings open. John's unconscious body causes Michelle to tumble into the water, resulting in her drowning. However, Wave manages to pull John back, but discovers he is dead with his head split open. Meanwhile, the other passengers try to enter the cockpit, but the password fails. Bank, Wave, Nu, and Jamras search for Gift, who has suddenly vanished. They head toward the cargo hold, where Nu breaks down, crying and revealing that she only survived because she kept her eyes shut and didn't help anyone else, a haunting memory that still torments her. The scene cuts back to the cabin, where Fen uses a push cart to finish off the monk and Michelle, mistaking them for ghosts. Back in the cargo area, 3 ghosts approach Bank, Wave, Nu, and Jamras. They decide to close their eyes, as Nu advised, but Wave, overwhelmed with fear, is unable to do so. In a moment of panic, he throws an axe toward Prince as he enters the cargo hold, mistaking him for a ghost, and kills him. They all retreat back upstairs to the cabin, where Fen mistakenly kills Wave, thinking he is a ghost as well. Fen has become delusional and nearly kills Gift, who is hiding in a cupboard. Gift quickly runs to her father as her mother behaves erratically, aiming to kill anyone in her path. She attacks her husband with an axe. Bank knocks her out, and they tie her to a chair. Bank then creates a small hole in the flight deck door, but cannot get through. He asks Gift if she will go inside and tells her what to do. She manages to press the required button, despite being terrified by the sight of ghosts. Suddenly, the plane begins to shake violently, and the passengers struggle to maintain their balance as a cupboard shoots forward, sending cutlery flying toward Fen, severely injuring her and causing her to fall. Bank rushes to the cockpit and moves the dead pilot, trying to stabilize the aircraft. Meanwhile, Fen is possessed by a ghost and attempts to strangle Nu. Bank and Jamrus call for help, and a pilot instructs them on how to land the plane. After they successfully land the aircraft, police and paramedics rush in to clear away the deceased. Finally, Bank, Gift, and her father Jarmus disembark from the plane. After a moment, they realize that Nu is missing. It is revealed that Nu met her demise when Fen strangled her. In the final scene, we see the same plane is scheduled to be repainted and reused, with Nu's spirit seen sitting inside.